Hello, and welcome to the Atomic Lizards podcast. I am Miranda, and I'm joined with Dan and Udi, and today we have a new episode of our Now Playing series. Today's episode is about Five Nights at Freddy's. There will be spoilers ahead for the movie, and possibly the games, and the books, and the entire franchise and the lore, depending on how deep we get into this conversation. So you have been warned. This movie is about a troubled young man named Mike who agrees to take a position as a night security guard at an abandoned themed restaurant, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. But he soon discovers that nothing at Freddy's is what it seems. So, before we get into our general thoughts and everything, I just want to ask you guys, what's your general knowledge on FNAF lore? Like, are you a fan? Have you played the games? Do you just know theories? Are you like four people removed like I am?
I used to be deep in the FNAF lore back in the day. I remember when Five Nights at Freddy's first hit the scene. Now, obviously, a lot of people are going to remember Five Nights at Freddy's being made famous through YouTube Let's Plays. And of course, the most popular of all the YouTube Let's Players that put Five Nights at Freddy's on the map is Markiplier. But I actually did not discover Five Nights at Freddy's through Markiplier. I was subscribed to him at the time, but there was another YouTuber. His name was Yami Mash. He was also a Let's Player that played a lot of horror games, and I was subscribed to him at the time. And that's how I first found out about Five Nights at Freddy's. Was I watched his Let's Play on it. And in fact, it's interesting because if you watch the Markiplier Let's Play, like the very first part, he actually mentions Yami Mash in it. He talks about how he chose to play it because Yami Mash said it was pretty good. So that's how I first discovered it. And yeah, like just watching like those first like the Let's Play of the first game, super interesting. Like the concept was really interesting. Obviously I never got around to playing the Five Nights at Freddy's games because I was chicken shit and like the jump scares I just couldn't handle the jump scares, so I never played them myself. But I always enjoyed watching Let's Plays on them, and of course, I watched the game theory videos, and the game theory videos were good fun in terms of coming up with theories and deciphering the lore. Around that time, I was working my first job at a place called the Controller Shop, and I had a really cool coworker there. Her name was Kasha. I also really got her into the Five Nights at Freddy's lore, and there were times at work where we would just like sit and we would discuss like Five Nights at Freddy's theories. It was really fun to be part of the fandom back in the day when it was like super popular. Now, I'm not as much into the fandom anymore as I used to be. I haven't really dove too much into like the other games outside of like the original four games. Like I kind of fell out after the fourth game, and then after that, I never really paid attention to any of the newer games that came out. And I did buy one of the books, Five Nights at Freddy's: The Silver Eyes, I believe it was called. It was like the first like lore book they released, and I read like the first couple chapters, but I never finished it. That book I think is what introduced a lot of like the bigger points of the lore, like William Afton and whatnot. But yeah, I never finished it, so I never really got as deep as I could have gotten into it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
there's a lot of stuff to cover with FNAF. Lots of games, lots of books, lots of theories, lots of people playing FNAF. It's just so much information, and yet, from my knowledge, no consistency across any of it. Um, okay, so Udi, what's your relationship with FNAF?
I'd never played any of the games, and I was aware of it from the very first one. And I was also aware of Markiplier, and I think I tried to watch a Markiplier Let's Play of FNAF once or twice or something, but I don't know. I didn't really vibe with Markiplier at that time, and I didn't really. I like people would talk about FNAF and say like, "Oh, it's so scary," blah blah blah. Like, it came out after like Slenderman. So like when Slenderman came out, and it took me a while to get to play the original one. But like when I did, it was like, "Oh, it's creepy," but like it is what it is. And then when FNAF came out, I thought it was gonna be like the new like next big like scary horror game, whatever. But then I watched gameplay of it, and I thought it was pretty lame and boring and disappointing because it was just like watching static cams, and then there'd be like a random jump scare of like an animatronic animal. So like I didn't really find it scary at all. So I just kind of lost interest, and then I just kept seeing it like grow and grow and grow this like crazy fan base, and I didn't get it at all, to be honest. Like I didn't think it didn't look cool to me, it didn't sound cool to me, it didn't sound interesting, it didn't look interesting. Like I just did not care at all. So across all these years, I've never played any of the games, and I never really cared to look much into the lore or anything. However, one of the most either the most recent game or one of the most recent games actually kind of seemed interesting to me. Like it was like a fully 3D, like you were exploring the pizzeria.
Security Breach?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. That's the newest one. I've heard there's controversial opinions about it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But
I've
that's
yeah,
what
you
definitely
I've
seen
get
heard
to
pretty
too.
like
controversial reviews.
yeah, you get to go like explore and like there's a alligator, Monty, I think is his name, and then like some other new glam rock animatronics.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I watched the trailer for that, that was the only FNAF game that I saw. I was like, you know what, that actually looks kind of cool. Like I might check that out sometime. Still haven't, mainly because I got pretty mixed reviews, and I was like, I don't know what this is about, but I'll maybe get it when it's dirt cheap one day. But yeah, like that's the only one that I was kind of intrigued by, and that's because it actually felt like, in no judgment, but like to me that felt more like engaging gameplay than like the other games. So, but I never watched gameplay of it, or I never watched like a walkthrough of it. Like I watched a little bit of gameplay, and like I watched either a before you buy video on it, or I don't know, like minor stuff on it, not like a lot. But yeah, and then like the movie was coming out, and once I heard that it was Blumhouse and that they were actually doing the animatronics, I was a lot more intrigued by the movie, and I was like, you know what? If it actually looks decent, I'll go check it out, and then yeah, so
And here
uh,
we are.
here we are. Yeah,
Yeah.
I again, like coming into this, like not really having much of an interest into the base property, going into it knowing that it was getting kind of middling reviews, I was like, you know what? I don't know anything about it. As long as it's kind of interesting or whatever, I'm gonna give it a fair shot, and I'm just gonna see how it is. And yeah, so I guys we'll get to our
Yeah.
thoughts when we get there.
Yep. We'll get to our thoughts on this movie. I just wanted to establish your guys's like
Yeah,
knowledge on FNAF because not that this rating of this movie, not that you should take stock in Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb or Letterbox rating systems. I think you should watch a movie and judge it for yourself and not base your opinion off of numbers. But based off the numbers, there is a very big divide in those numbers. One's really high and one is really low. For myself, I've watched like some YouTubers play the games, Dan and Phil games. They're not very good like at the games. Because there is strategic like things you have to do. It's not just like sitting there and getting jump scared. Like you actually have to concentrate for some of them at least. And I think there's a guy named Spiff. He plays FNAF stuff. I think he actually had a bot system rigged up to where his Twitch stream could play the game. I think it was the third game, and they like the Twitch stream beat the game, which is fascinating to
Oh,
me.
that's cool.
Yeah. And then I get basically all my information from my sister, who gets her information from like Spiff and Matt Pat and just all that like theory stuff. And I watch Matt Pat stuff too occasionally. So I say we're, not a part of the current fandom and we may not know the most about it, but hopefully we can talk about this movie. And if we do get anything wrong, we apologize in advance because I know it is a lot of stuff. So let's move towards our just like general thoughts, initial things that, you know, what would be your like elevator pitch review of this movie?
I would say if you're looking for, and not to talk down on the movie, but if you're looking for a more child friendly horror film that still has a lot. Like has good production value, most specifically in the pizzeria and the animatronics. Um, and you don't mind silly horror movies, then this is definitely a movie to check out. Also, just in general, if you like supporting smaller productions, um, or video game adaptations. This is definitely another movie to check out. And I'm sure if you care about video game adaptations, you probably already checked this out or kind of looked into it or something already. But yeah, I would say if you're interested in any of that, then I would definitely go check it out. It's in my opinion, it's really not that bad. It's not great. A lot of the writing is really bad, and as long as you don't go expecting like a super scary or it's a PG-13 movie based off of a video game. No offense, but essentially for kids. So like, if you don't have your expectations set to that point, then you're not gonna like it. But otherwise, if you go in with an open mind and depending, I don't know. I mean, as someone who doesn't know anything about the lore, like again, like I thought the writing was pretty bad, but I thought it was fine. So that those are my quick thoughts.
I just have to say, a lot of people are saying the writing is bad, but I think based off my broad knowledge of the franchise, this is one of the most cohesive stories that they've told.
Yikes.
Oh yeah, well, because the video games, the story was always left intentionally vague. Like
Yeah.
you had to piece the story together yourself through like background.
Yeah, it's a
Uh,
big puzzle.
exactly. Yeah.
I will say that when I say the writing, I don't necessarily mean like the story. I mean more like the dialogue, like that one line where the character says, "In my own way," like they tried to tell this character something. It's like, no, you didn't. Like that's
But
so
she
stupid.
did.
No, that
Yeah,
was
she
so
did. I
stupid.
just rewatched the beginning of the movie. She tried in her own way.
Okay, it's the stupidest, most infuriating thing that a movie can do, and they did it. So it's still
Hey,
stupid.
she tried in her own way, Udi.
The writer tried in their own way to not spoil the movie like super early on, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, they did though. When with the title sequence.
I mean, like I said, I didn't hate the movie. I didn't dislike it. I just thought it was fine. But like the writing is the dialogue is just bad. Not
Hmm,
all bad, but some of it's pretty bad.
interesting. But let's go to Dan. What's your elevator pitch review of this movie?
I'm more in line with what Udi's thoughts were. Like if you're a kid or teenager and you love the video games, you're probably gonna really like this movie. I also didn't think the writing was very good, but unlike Udi, who thought this movie was okay, I think this is a below average film. Like, I don't think it's very good. If you're a big fan of the video games and you love the lore, you're going to get more out of this than most people will. Hence, like, the big divide we're seeing right now that Miranda mentioned earlier.
Okay, so I think I'm probably the one that liked it the most out of all of us. My quick review, I liked this movie. I think it was well made. I think that the animatronic suits by the Jim Henson Shop are fantastic. They are so detailed and so well done. Like they look like the video games. There's like zero and uncanny valley for me, which like I greatly appreciate. I love the little stained glass windows in the pizzeria on the booths. And like I said, this is one of the most cohesive stories to my knowledge about FNAF and the main premise of FNAF of a guy luring kids from a pizzeria, murdering them, and then stuffing them into animatronic suits. This is like the most like they took that core element to the whole franchise, and I think this movie captures that story very well. And the music is really good. Overall, I think you should go watch it and support this movie and the people in it because Josh Hutcherson is cool, Matthew Lillard's cool. Like the girl who played Abby did a great job, in my opinion. And it shows that a more lower budget film can make money. Granted, it is a movie based off of a huge franchise of products that has a really dedicated fan base, but it shows that you can take small indie horror games what that started off as small horror indie games or other small indie games, and you can make something that people care about and make it well. Now, when it comes to that, whether it's made well or not, it depends on the opinions of everyone who is viewing it. So that's where we see that big divide in like Rotten Tomatoes. The critics are not liking this movie. The audience is, however. So as we all have, we're about like a like, dislike, and a middle of it, you know. Let's get into our dislikes. Let's talk about what we disliked first, just because we can get that out of the way, and then let's then hopefully we can go into our likes and end on a slightly happier note than the dislikes. Cause like I said, I did like this movie, and I am curious on why you guys have like medium feelings and like a dislike for this, other than like the bad writing and everything, which I have seen other complaints. I've seen other complaints of people saying they didn't like any of the characters, they all found them annoying, or like the acting is off. But the one thing I have seen is that I think everyone can agree that the Jim Henson's Creature Shop did a fantastic job at making the suits. So, with that all being said, who would like to talk about their dislikes first?
I wanna say something really quick because Miranda, you mentioned earlier about how inspiring it can be to like make an indie product that a lot of people end up loving. Just like
Mhm.
the creator of the Five Nights at Freddy's series, his name is Scott Cawthon, I believe. Just his entire story is pretty inspirational because he's this one man game developer that created a whole bunch of like just forgettable, like not very well known games. Like the whole idea for Five Nights at Freddy's came to him when one of his games, I don't remember the name of the game, but I just know you played as like a beaver, like chopping, like chainsawing wood or something like that. One of the
Interesting.
criticisms one of the yeah um one of the criticisms he got for that game was that the beaver character looked like a creepy animatronic from like Chuck E. Cheese. So he
Mm.
took that idea and he ran with it. And like it's just so inspiring to because you know he made these games by himself. I'm pretty sure at least the first couple he made them completely by himself, and to
Yeah.
see how big these become to where he's got multiple video games, he's got a movie, he's got books, like it's pretty cool, you know? Like if you're dedicated enough, you can do anything you put your mind to.
Yeah, I think this franchise started off in a very interesting way. I think it also took off a lot because of the YouTubers playing it. I think that without the YouTubers and the fact that the games literally, from my knowledge, came out back to back in quick like in a quick manner, that because the YouTubers were playing it, that's why it got so famous and got so into pop culture. Um, so like it's not just him, it's all the fans. Because without the fans, I don't think these games would have taken off the way that they did.
Yeah, but I mean, that can be said for pretty much any intellectual property out there.
Yeah, but I just wanted to make sure that the fans were recognized and the YouTubers who played the games are recognized as well.
Oh yeah, they definitely helped in making the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise what it is today. Like
Mhm.
especially not only just fans, but like you were saying, especially the YouTubers.
Yeah. Okay, so back to dislikes. Can you tell me like 1 to 3 things that you disliked?
Yeah, so it's like what Udi was saying, and I know you've already mentioned it a million times before, but just the writing was terrible in this movie. I did not think the writing was very good. See, one thing that I always liked about the original FNAF games was it was kind of I know they gave you clues and they kind of had a way of saying yes, this is exactly what this is, but it was still somewhat vague because like in
Mhm.
the original games you like because once again when it comes to the story, like the story isn't something that's just told to you, you have to pay attention. And one of the
Yeah.
ways to piece the story together in the first game is there's newspaper clippings that appear
Mhm.
taped to the walls. when you're looking through the cameras. And like reading those newspaper clippings gives you some of the backstory about how some children were murdered at a FNAF restaurant, and they stuffed their bodies into the animatronics. Now, in the games, it's kind of somewhat implied that the spirits of these children haunt the animatronics, but it's never like explicitly said, yes, it's the children haunting the animatronics. It's something that's kind of left up to interpretation. And the entire reason why the animatronics move around at night is because it's explained in the games that they have like an auto like
Mm-hmm.
movement mode at night, so that's why they move around. But here in the movie they just flat out say, yeah, these animatronics are haunted by children. Like Josh, there's literally a scene where Josh Hutcherson like is in the restaurant, he's talking with the police officer. I don't remember the name of the actor.
Vanessa is her character
Oh,
name.
her character's name. Yeah, he's talking with Vanessa, and he's like, "Yeah, so these animatronics are haunted by children." And it's like, when you say it like that, it's kind of dumb. Like just saying it like that's how I felt. Like I know that's what it's like in the games, but once again, I always liked how the games did it, where it was kind of left more up to interpretation. But here they just flat out say it, and when they just flat out say it in the way that they did, I don't know, it just felt kind of dumb to me personally.
I could see that. Like, the, being a little more blunt with the information would take away some of that mystery from the games. I think eventually in the games, they do say that the spirits are attached to the animatronics, but, like, in the first game, I don't think so. So, like, I can see why that would be, like, an annoying sticking point, but I think they did that because not everyone is going to want a giant mystery for this movie, and I think they were also trying to make it palatable to people who are not familiar with the franchise.
I feel like making like a mystery though intrigues you and makes you want to like keep watching, whereas like just telling you outright from the very beginning like what is happening, it's like okay, so like where are we going? Whereas like I feel like if it had been a mystery, it's like okay, well why is this happening? And then the end could have just been like the reveal, and then maybe it still would have been like a dumb reveal, but at least like you would have been intrigued for the whole rest of the movie. Whereas like by not having a mystery, like you're told from the beginning like what's basically happening. You're like okay, so I do feel like a mystery could have made it more interesting as like a viewing experience, as opposed to detracting from it.
Not only that, but just, like other issues I had with the writing was from the very beginning where Mike goes and punches that guy because like he thinks he's kidnapping a child or whatever. Because when I watched that scene for the first time and I saw that like child standing there and that man went up and got him, my first immediate thought was, "Oh, this is probably this kid's father." But Mike's like, "Oh my god, he's being kidnapped. Like I got to
Well,
go and beat this guy up." Like
that's because he has trauma related to his brother being kidnapped and as a
But
child, and he
we don't know that at the beginning of the movie, though. We don't
No, we
know that yet.
don't know that at the beginning of the movie, and I think that by establishing that, you establish that in his character, so the rest of his motivation throughout the film makes sense. Why he's so obsessed with his poster, his tape, why he keeps going back to the same dream over and over again. Yeah, I think that was just a way to show his like that he is still very much not coping with what happened to him as a 12-year-old, and that has just influenced his whole life.
I mean, I can understand that, but still, in like a realistic situation, you see that. Why would your first thought be, "Oh my God, this kid's being kidnapped"? Like, I just feel like most people, even if they've had past trauma, that wouldn't be their first thought immediately.
Well, and I could be misremembering. I don't remember what the opening shot is. Or well, I guess it's the first security guard, but maybe like after that, have Josh Hutcherson wake up like, and again maybe this happened. I don't remember, but have him wake up, have his nightmare, and then wake up and go to work. Maybe that is what happened. I don't remember, but
Uh,
uh,
it starts with him trying he's in, like, his black shirt with his tie, and he's trying to get Abby ready, and then it cuts into a flashback of him and his incident at the mall, and then it cuts back to him sitting at the employee office in that same shirt we saw him in the opening. So it is a little jarring at first because I also was kind of confused on like what is happening, but upon rewatch, I'm like, oh, this is a flashback, so that's we're like not necessarily like the perspective of like how Mike, that's Josh Hutcherson's character's name, is like
Like, what you're saying, I understand. Like, I think we both understand what you're saying, like, yeah, that makes sense, and I can understand, like, the filmmakers being like, "Oh, well, this is why I will include this because it's, like, supporting how he's still traumatized by his, like, childhood." Like, that makes sense, like, we do agree with that. It's just that they did it in a poor way so that, like, that the beginning scene in the mall did feel a little silly, like, he didn't try to, like, investigate at all, he just, like, started assaulting this man in broad
Exactly.
daylight.
Yeah, he just
But if they had,
immediately
like,
started assaulting him. Sorry, Udi.
no, no, no,
Go on.
you're good. But yeah, if they had like set up that like his childhood trauma was like his brother being kidnapped like before that or better in like a better way, then maybe it wouldn't have felt as like weird or like jarring. But I just feel like they and it yeah like it's not a huge problem because like once you watch the movie you're like oh okay like that's why he did it because but it still feels a little sloppy like they could have done it a little bit better.
Well,
I think that's what Dan's trying to say at least.
yeah, well, not only that, but like just the way that they show like the dad like picking the kid up, I never got the vibe like, oh my God, this kid is being kidnapped. Like if they could have framed that scene a little differently to make you maybe think at first, oh my God, this kid's getting kidnapped, then maybe that scene would work a little better for me. But it doesn't because I never once thought that the kid was being kidnapped.
I guess maybe from my view is I knew this was a movie. I know this franchise is about kidnapping kids and getting murdered, so the jump from him seeing a kid getting taken away, dragged away, and immediately reacting didn't really feel bizarre to me personally because again of the weird, strange storyline of FNAF.
So I just want to say like another weird thing that they would do with the writing sometimes is like because if you played if well I mean I never played the FNAF games but I did watch full let's plays on them. So like if you've played and you've beaten like the very first FNAF game, you know that your character is called Mike Schmidt. And when this character is called Mike in the movie, like I'm thinking all right, this is probably Mike Schmidt then, but they do this weird thing where when he's talking to Matthew Lillard's character, like Matthew, like he reads out his name. He goes Mike, and then like he's about to say his last name, but he doesn't for whatever reason. And then he just keeps talking. It's like that was kind of a weird choice. Why are they trying to like mask his name? Like I don't get it.
Well, for him like pausing and not saying that name, like obviously by the end of the movie we realize we're shown and told that he is William Afton and he kidnapped Garrett. So that's why he pauses on the name because he knows the name.
Oh, you know
Obviously,
that you're right. That's true. I
yeah.
forgot that he kidnapped his brother.
Mhm.
That's true. Okay.
So when he sees the name, he like pauses and redirects because clearly by the end of the movie we realize that he wants to like complete the circle or something, he says like that.
Yeah, something
So
along those lines. That
I
is
mean,
true.
that's why they also could have paused because there are several different Michaels and Mikes in the franchise. Um, William Afton's son, one of his sons, is called Michael. So they could have also paused on the name. That might be why. Although probably not.
Gotcha. Okay, that is true. That is a plot. I did forget that in the end we find out that William Afton, Matthew Lillard's character, does kidnap, is responsible for Josh Hutcherson's brother being taken, or Mike Schmidt's. But all
Yeah.
right. Um. So yeah, once again, I just didn't think the writing was very well done. And then you had mentioned earlier that some people were complaining about the characters. I
Mhm.
also felt like the characters weren't very memorable. Like even Josh Hutcherson's character, like I didn't find him that memorable at all. So like I did think the characters were just a tad bit on the bland side for me personally. Because like the whole idea behind the video games was you're a security guard, you got to
Mhm.
watch the security cameras and you got to keep the animatronics from getting in. I never felt like that happened at all in the movie. Like we got that scene at the very beginning where we show that first security guard getting killed. Fun
Mhm.
fact, that was originally supposed to be Markiplier because Markiplier was gonna cameo in this movie, but he
Mhm.
couldn't due to scheduling differences with the movie that he's making right now called Iron Lung. But
Mhm.
if he would have been able to cameo, that's who he would have been. So
That would
fun.
have been a really cool
Yeah, that
cameo.
would have been
Yeah, I
cool.
know. Yeah,
That would have
that
been
would have.
like perfect.
Exactly.
But
Hopefully, he can cameo in the sequel.
Yeah, well, I
yeah.
think Scott was like the creator of Five Nights at Freddy's, Scott Cawthon. He was so, well, I wouldn't say upset, but he was a little bummed out that Markiplier wasn't able to cameo. So he's like, "Hey, man, if we make sequels or whatever, we gotta have you in it." So I would expect, hopefully, if there's no more scheduling differences, to Markiplier to appear in at least one of the sequels. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. So yeah, so I just because the point of the games is watching the security cameras and making sure that the
Hmm.
animatronics don't come and kill you. And I feel like that didn't really have that big of a role in the movie. Like, I mean, there's some
I mean,
points where he's watching the security cameras and whatnot, but it never really felt like the animatronics were coming after Mike. I mean, it kind of did at the end. And that was another
hmm
thing. Like, the ending was a little weird because you got Abby hiding from Foxy at one point where she's scared, and then like the scene immediately after, like she's okay with them all. It's like you were just terrified of getting caught by one of these animatronics, and now you're all good with them again. Like what happened? I don't like what's going on.
so like you brought up the fact that there's not it the game, the first game at least is about watching security cameras and making sure that they're like everything is going smoothly for that. But I don't think that's what they wanted to make. I think they wanted to focus on the lore and the story instead of just making a repeat of the games. So like when they do show that you see shadows in the background. You do see other adults get attacked because that's what the animatronics slash children do. They attack the adults, and they do end up going after Mike too.
Like I wanted more scenes with the animatronics, like I guess quote unquote killing people, because we only have like that one scene with those people that break in. I know, but that was like really the only big scene I could think of with when those people break in, and then that's it. Really, I felt.
Well, yeah, but like they're not gonna just have him keep going after Mike, repeating over and over again. This isn't like a paranormal activity type movie where you watch security camera and you see shadows move around in the background. Like,
Yeah, because you can't make an entire movie just watching security. That'd be the most boring movie in the in the
yeah.
world.
So I guess maybe they could have added a bit more to that and like still balanced it out. So Udi, you also mentioned writing. Have you been agreeing what where you've been saying? Disagree? Did you have other dislikes for this film?
I would definitely say my biggest dislike is the writing as well. And I've agreed with pretty much everything Dan has said. I mean, I definitely liked it more than Dan. Again, I didn't love it. I didn't really like it. I just like it was fine. I didn't dislike it at all, and I really appreciated like the animatronic work. Like everyone can agree that that's like infinitely the best part about the movie. Like the animatronic work and the Freddy Fazbear set was just like the best part of the movie. They did such a great job at recreating that and bringing that to life. Um, like if you've watched even like one horror movie, I feel like it could really easily put together like the plot twist for this movie. Like as soon as like we were introduced to Vanessa, I'm like, well, one first of all, I was like, well, she's way too like cozy here. Like she knows too much about this place. Like she's definitely like there's some background here. Boom, the big plot twist hits, and it's I was like, oh, I mean, yeah, that was not hard to put together at all. And then like the more that she like spends time with it, I'm like, this what? Like this makes like why are you doing this? Why are you saying this? Or
Because
like
she's trying to like convince him to leave. It makes sense why she's there and why she's doing the stuff she's doing.
I don't mind the interactions. Like I liked Vanessa and I liked the actress, but like so much of the dialogue and so much of what she does is like for lack of better words, like stupid. Like it's either nonsensical or just like it's just I don't know. But like I didn't dislike the character and I didn't dislike the actress. I think she did a great job. Like I just felt like in no way would that like happen in the and again it's a movie. I'm not trying to like oh everything has to be realistic. That's not what I'm saying. But like you're watching a movie that's like set in like real life technically and like so to have a person like say and do things that are kind of nonsensical, it's just like it just takes you out of it. So,
Yeah,
Exactly.
but
Oh,
it's a movie
but
about
that
ghost
doesn't
children
but that doesn't mean
possessing
anything.
animatronics.
Like you have to be able to lose yourself in the movie, and if a movie is doing silly things that's pulling you out of it because it's nonsensical, then it's not doing like you can be watching any movie about anything and it doesn't matter. But if it's like if the movie is like making you like, well that's like weird or silly, then it's not doing a good job. Like it doesn't matter if it's complete fantasy or anything, but like if it's doing nonsensical things and it pulls you out of it. And that's
Yeah.
like for me and for sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting you off, Dan. What
Well, I was just gonna say you also gotta remember that your suspension of disbelief can only go so far.
yeah. And so like and I don't know, like again, like I'm really not trying to I'm not trying to hate on the movie or anything. Again, like I thought it was fine. Like I
Mhm.
enjoyed my time with it. Like I would watch it again. Like I really didn't hate it or dislike it. I'm pointing
Mhm.
out the things that I thought like I had issues
Yeah.
with and
No,
so
it makes sense. Like,
yeah.
I know that like people have mentioned that the writing is bad and stuff, and that's a valid criticism for it. So I totally see where both of you are coming from and everything. I don't know.
I just want to add one more thing
Um,
because I just remembered this part because Udi was talking about like scenes that kind of take you out of it. Okay, that one scene where the Freddy animatronic goes back and picks up Abby and they take a taxi all the way to the restaurant. Like that taxi driver is just not gonna question why there's this big ass robot in his taxi.
Well, it's like first off, you're not gonna question the little girl just being like, take me here.
If a little girl walked into my taxi cab, the first thing I would say is, where's your parents?"
Yeah.
Because he's just like, "Where to, little lady?" Like, "What?"
okay. Um, but fun fact, the taxi car driver is a YouTuber named Corey, I believe. And
Hmm.
in my second viewing, everyone like pointed at the screen, was like, "Oh my gosh, that's this guy." I clearly did not know who he was. Did, however, point at the screen and was like, "Hey, that's Matt Pat. I know Matt Pat. That's cool." But there was a lot of like tweens and kids in the second viewing that I went to and the first viewing, so they definitely were reacting to any YouTube cameo, any like lore implications, anything. They were all just having a blast.
Another scene that like pulled me out of the movie was I don't know. Mike is the most hard-headed, like stubborn. It's so obvious of like the main thing that Vanessa was telling him was like, open your eyes, care that you have your sister in front of you, and don't, well, you can't change what happened with your brother, appreciate your sister who's alive and in front of you. But like he just couldn't until like the very end where like the animatronics are like, well, we want her, and then he's like, okay, and then he's like, no, just kidding, and then it's too late. So like you get to the emotional climax of the film, and he's like pouring his heart out to her like, oh man, Abby, like you're my sister and I didn't appreciate you as much before, but I love you, you're my sister, I care about you, and I just want you to be okay, and I want us to be a big happy family, small happy family because everyone else is dead, sorry. And she goes, okay, anyway, and then like, just like moves on,
Well,
and it's like
he
okay.
says like that he cares for her and stuff, and she says, "Yeah, I love you too. Now let's get out of here." Like
But
that's
like you have to let a moment like that is the emotional crux of the film, like that is basically the climax. It's like that's what you're building to. Like, ah, yes, they're finally coming together. Like this is what basically the through line of the movie is. It's like, oh, this family, these two siblings who like care about each other but like are disconnected, are finally coming together, and they're finally like, ah, yes, we love each other. Let's be happy. And
mhm.
then she just goes, okay, yeah, anyway, and then like just that you move on. It just like it
Well,
just falls
yeah,
so
there's
flat.
giant animatronics trying to kill
That
them. They don't
okay,
have
but
time to pause and freeze on that moment.
there's
Also,
so many
the
other moments where they
climax of the
pause and
movie.
freeze. Like it doesn't like there is a suspension of disbelief, and like I'm not saying they need to sit there for 5 minutes, but like let them have their emotional moment, and then like oh no, there's a monster right there, let's go. But
Yeah,
like they
you
just
know
go
how
through it way
many
too fast.
you know how many other horror movies have like paused for emotional moments like that in scenes where they probably need to get the hell out of there?
No, I don't watch horror movies. Um, but I mean, I don't think that was a part of the climax, but I think the whole point of the whole movie is to establish William Afton as a character. So
I
whatever
mean,
they
yeah,
do in the next ones,
that is
like
more like the the main climax, I guess. But like I would say like the emotional through line of the movie, like that is the emotional climax of the emotional through line. Because like that's the familial relationship that you're building this whole time,
Hmm.
and for it to just get like squandered at its peak, its most important moment, I felt like I was like, wow, okay, sure, let's just keep going, I guess.
She acknowledges it, says it back, and then they move on. Like, I don't really know what else they could have added there.
Again, it was just the delivery and the speed. Like, I'm not saying she needed to go
Yeah.
on a big monologue, but like, if in real life, if I was in that moment and my sister goes, "Yeah, I love you too," anyway, I'd be like, "Oh, okay, well, thanks." Like
Yeah, it's
that
just
would feel so crappy.
the way she reacted. It's not so much that they needed to have the scene go on for a while. It's just the way, like, I feel like that scene could have been better if she just wouldn't be like, "Oh, well, I love you too, Mike," and then they hug for
She
like 2
did. She said,
seconds, and
"I
then
love you
But
too."
it was the delivery. It was too fast.
yeah,
It's so flat. It was like, "Yeah, I love you too." Anyway,
yeah,
and like
yeah. Like
that,
Okay.
if she would have said it like slower and a little,
like
just
with
the way
like
she said
actual
it.
love and care.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the way
Well,
that she said.
And like
she
I'm not
is
blaming her. I blame more the direction she's probably given than anything, or maybe they ran out of
Yeah, it's
time.
probably not her fault.
Yeah.
I mean, it could also fit into her character because she is a character who literally processes the world and establishes everything she knows through images. Like she like says I love you back and then was like let's get out of here, but like she literally draws him in every single photo, every single picture she draws. So like I feel like that shows that she cares about him too.
Again,
Like
like we know that they care about each other, but the whole point of the movie, at least from like this point of like the emotional through line, is that this is finally them getting beyond their like differences and coming together. Because like you can tell he cares about her. Because like the most important thing that he tries to do every day is like try to get her to eat, try to get her to do stuff. Like
mhm.
he loves her too, and you know that he loves her, and you know that she loves him because she draws him in every photo, and like you even get that picture or that scene with the therapist or teacher, whoever that lady is, of like, oh, she draws you in every picture. Guess who her world is? It's you. Like we know that they love each other, but the point is they rush through like the most important part of like them coming together and like acknowledging like, ah yes, like our differences don't matter that much. We love each other. Let's be happy. Like that's what I'm getting at. Like we know that they love each other. That's not in question. That's not what I'm saying, but like the one scene where like we finally get like the emotional crux of the film and they just like completely like sped through it and then just moved on. Like that's my problem with it. It's a flaw. I don't think that they could have done it better and it wouldn't have taken a lot of effort to do it better. Like I said, it was just that one line delivery and then just moving on super fast. I was like, okay, all right. Like I just remember I chuckled in the theater. I was like, okay, all right, sure.
Yeah, we know that they love each other, and I know that in this scene he like immediately realizes he made a mistake. But still, the fact that he was willing to give up his sister to get his brother back kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And once again, I
Yeah, oh
know
yeah.
immediately after he's like, "Oh, I made a mistake. I need to fix this right now." But still, like,
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna say that that was a dislike, but that was just like a I was not expecting that. Like I thought he would have realized sooner. But the fact that I mean, I guess I'll give him props in a weird way of like at least they were willing to go there. But it was like, oh my god, dude, what are you insane?
Well, he's not insane, but he definitely has issues that's not been dealt with.
Well, yeah,
So there's a lot going on in this whole movie, just like the whole franchise. But it was an interesting choice that they did do that. Cause like he does struggle with like he wants his brother back and he doesn't really and he does care for his sister. He's just so stuck on the past that the instant he says it, he instantly regrets it and does try to fix it and then make sure to tell Abby that he does care about her. Did you have any other dislikes or anything?
I mean, I think that's mainly it. I mean, I Dan covered a lot, so I would say those are mine. So if you have any, you can go ahead.
Okay. My dislike? Balloon Boy. He sucks.
yeah, the cheap out balloon boy scares.
That
It was
was honestly
honestly,
hilarious.
yeah, it was kind of funny. Like every time.
Like, he shows up in the second game a lot, I think. And it's just like, why? Like, go away. No one likes you. You're creepy looking. Um, I didn't have issues with the writing, I didn't have issues with the story, I didn't even really have issues with any of the acting or line delivery. I also didn't go into this movie with any expectations, so if you go with no expectations, you're always pleasantly surprised, at least in my opinion. Um, so I think they just had a lot of ground to cover, and the ground they did cover, I think, made a cohesive story, whether or not the dialogue is off or not is like a different thing, but like as a cohesive story, I think it works. So I don't really have any dislike other than Balloon Boy. But I definitely see both of your like opinions and your thoughts on this because like I've said, I have seen a lot of people say, "Oh, the writing is bad," but they just say the writing is bad and like obviously you don't have to give examples for why you dislike a movie or why the writing is bad, but I definitely see some of your points on like the emotional scene with Mike and Abby and some of the other stuff that we have talked about. So, I guess if we have no more dislikes, let's talk about our likes then, which I feel like I'll have a lot to say. Maybe not you guys, but let's start with you guys first.
All right. Well, I started us off first with dislikes, so I guess I'll start us off first with likes as well. And you guys have already kind of mentioned this, but the set design for this movie was awesome. Like the Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria was literally a spinning image of how it's designed in the video games. They did such a good job on the set design.
They really did.
Yeah, and
They
the
got the
anima
fan and the cup and the monitors,
exactly,
the
yeah.
poster.
All that was missing was the squeaky nose on the posters.
Yeah, no blooping of the nose.
Exactly. But no, they did a great job on the set design, and like you said, Miranda, the animatronics looked great. The Jim Henson's Creature Shop did a great job perfectly translating the animatronics from the video game to live action. I'm surprised because, like you said, they look just like the video game. Like usually with video game adaptations, especially live action adaptations, there's always some sort of design change that happens with the process of translating these characters into live action. But they literally just took it's like they literally just took the renders from the game and they
Mhm.
made like live action animatronics out of them. So that was really
Yeah.
cool. I love
It
how that
is
turned out.
yeah, it is really cool. I think there are some, like, little details that are different. Um, I don't know what they are, but I'm sure the super fans definitely do. But the fact that they made animatronics and that they made suits that people can wear also, like, is really cool.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
and, like, the accuracy to the exoskeletons, that you see in, like, the security guard training VHS is pretty accurate, at least according to my sister, and, like, overall, the attention to detail in this movie is really, really high, so
I couldn't agree more. I just wish there was phone guy. Hello, hello, hello.
hello, hello, fun fact, they say hello at least 10 times in the movie.
Do they?
Yep. Um, I mean, technically, William Afton is kind of technically phone guy.
Yeah, he
Kind of
is.
technically.
'Cause I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure in the original game, Phone Guy is actually Scott Cawthon himself.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. But so yeah, I love the set design. I love the way the animatronics turned out, and I really enjoyed the Matt Pat cameo. I actually didn't know that Matt Pat was gonna be in this movie. So like I remember me and Udi were talking beforehand, and Udi was like, "What's your big hope for this movie?" And I just jokingly said, "I want Matt Pat to show up at the very end and be like, 'That's just a theory, a game
Game
theory.'"
theory.
But then he shows up at the restaurant. I was like, "Oh my god, it's Matt Pat! I didn't know he was gonna be in this movie." And then he has that one line where he's like,
He's
"Well, that's
like,
just a
"It's
theory."
just
And like
theory."
me and one other guy just like burst out laughing in the theater because we both knew, yeah, yeah, we know what you're doing. I really enjoyed that cameo.
Yeah, it's a good cameo. Fun fact, his name tag, it says Ness. Apparently that's a reference to, like, his Ness Sans theory video that Matt Pat made. I've never watched it, but there's another Easter egg.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. But
Yeah.
oh, okay. But yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, but really the only things I really liked about this movie were the set design, the animatronics, and the Matt Pat cameo. That's about it for me.
All valid things to like. Okay, well, how about you, Udi? What's your likes?
I mean, same thing as Dan. I liked the set design, the animatronics, and I mean, I know who Matt Pat is, so I didn't immediately recognize him. But as soon as Dan said, "Oh, it's him, it's Matt Pat," I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And then he said like the theory line, and I was like, "Oh, okay, there it is."
He's
um,
gotta have his line in there.
I liked. I would say for the most part the performances were decent. I mean, I like Josh Hutcherson, so I think immediately like him being the lead, I was like, okay, cool. Like I was, despite his character doing questionable things, or making questionable decisions, I was like, Josh Hutcherson, I like him. And then
He's cool.
I never seen Vanessa's actor in anything, but I liked her, and I think she did a great job of like immediately having like a welcoming presence. So it's like as soon as you see her, she's very chill. She's just kind of like introducing Mike to whatever, and I think she did a good job with what she had on paper, and then I think that she was able to, even despite having some not great dialogue, was able to at least make it a little bit more palatable with her delivery. Matthew Lillard is always a win, so like he was cool. And I will say I liked how his suit was like it's not that it's actually that creepy, but his suit was like the creepiest at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So like I liked that.
Yeah, his
Um
suit, the the golden bunny is Springtrap.
I will say I thought they did a great job with Springtrap, and they did do his like story correctly. But when
Mm-hmm.
Matthew Lillard takes like the mask off and it's just him in the Springtrap body, that looked silly. I'm sorry, but I couldn't help but laugh a little because that looked really silly. But that's not the movie's fault. It's just me. I just thought Matthew Lillard and like this big fat like bulbous yellow bunny costume just looked funny.
yeah, I know from like when we went to go see you were like laughing. You're like, you look so funny. And I was like, I mean, he looks a little silly, but I don't know. I kind of like it. Thought it was fun to have him be the big bad, and again, he's always a win, so I liked him. Yeah, there was like a few funny moments throughout. Like again, like the whole taxi driver thing. Like that was just like, okay, all right, sure. And then the balloon boy. I like the balloon boy thing. Like I didn't know who that was, but I just thought it was funny because it's like this derpy little thing, and they're like, oh my god, scary, and it's like it's not scary at all, but it's funny. Um, I don't know, but I thought it was entertaining.
He- I mean, it is kind of funny, and it's just I think that people just find him super annoying because of the gameplay, and because I know that, that's why I find him annoying. But I'm glad you liked Balloon Boy.
Yeah. I mean, I just thought it was funny, like this little tiny thing, and then they do like a big jump scare, and it's like, but it's not scary. So it just made it kind of funny, like the
Hmm.
beginning where Mike gets jump scared by Balloon Boy a couple of times. I was like, okay. And then like I forgot about him until the end, and then you get the post credit scene, and I was like, and then I leaned over to him, I'm like, who is that? Because I was like, I don't know who this is, but he keeps coming up, and it's just like it's funny to me, but I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm assuming he's important in some way. And then he explained, but yeah. Otherwise, yeah. I mean, again, like I thought it was a perfectly fine movie. Like it was totally okay. Again, I appreciated the animatronics and like the practical effects work a lot. Um, and yeah, I'm very intrigued to see what the sequel is like because, um, I mean, again, I don't know anything about the lore. I'm sure I won't learn anything new about the lore before the movie comes out.
You mean you're not gonna play all 12 games and read all the
Oof,
books?
probably not. But
There's a lot of content, so.
there's a lot, too much content. And the only piece of media from FNAF that I could see myself actually playing would be Security Breach, and that's probably it. Like I don't think I'd play any of the other ones, but I don't know. Who knows? Um, but yeah, I'm intrigued to see what they do with the sequel. I'm intrigued to see if they give it a slightly higher budget, like how much more they'll give it, and I'm intrigued to see what the talent that joins the project will be like. Like, will it be a direct sequel? Will it be like new characters? But obviously like the animatronics and stuff. I don't know. I'm very intrigued to see what they do, and it'll be interesting to see or look back in like I don't know 5 to 6 years and see like if they've kept making these. Like, how many are they at? Like, are they gonna try to keep doing it? Is it gonna become like a big franchise? Like, I don't know. I'm just very curious to see like what comes of this. But yeah, I thought it was a nice little movie, and I Halloween is my favorite holiday. I love horror movies, so it was nice to just get to go see, even if it wasn't very scary, a quote unquote spooky movie for like Halloween time. So that was nice.
I will say that when the animatronics are killing those people that broke in to like kind of get Mike fired, when I think it's the Freddy Fazbear animatronic when he bites that one chick in half, like I don't know, I thought that was kind of like it wasn't a funny scene because somebody died, but I don't know, just I wasn't expecting it. So like just seeing an animatronic like literally bite a person in half, like I kind of laughed. I don't know why. It looked silly to me.
Oh, I was like, "Ooh, that's super brutal," especially because of the bite of 83 and the bite of 87. Like, that killed a kid and took a whole half of someone's
Yeah,
brain
that
out.
bite of
So the fact
87 literally took out someone's frontal lobe, which is
Yeah,
gnarly.
yeah. So, like, the fact that she got bit in half, I was like, "Oh, so, yeah, no, you really don't wanna mess with these things." Speaking of that scene, though, I wish Max, the person who gets bit in half, I wish she didn't die, but she's an adult and they target adults. That's like their whole function of the
Was
video
Max
game.
the
That's
babysitter?
yeah. Um so like for them to break in and then the animatronics to attack them makes sense. Also, that cupcake also pretty brutal. I would not want to mess with Carl the Cupcake, as the fans call him, or Mr. Cupcake, something like that. Also,
I
I huh?
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say because I forgot to mention this in my likes. I think Chica is my favorite of the animatronics. Just yeah, I thought her like they
Yeah.
all looked good, but I like Chica the most. I liked her expressions, and then I like how she just had the cupcake. Like I don't know, just kind of silly, but I liked it. It was kind of fun.
Yeah.
But sorry, continue, Miranda.
Oh, um, Chica and her cupcake. Some people think that the cupcake is possessed by the child, the young girl who possesses Chica, and the cupcake is possessed by her dead dog. And that's why the cupcake is so aggressive and why it attacks people so, like, brutally. That's just a theory. Film theory, game theory, whatever the right theory would be in this situation. Um, oh, my point. There is a scene where Josh Hutcherson is running down a hallway and he gets attacked by the cupcake and it attacks his left leg. And because I am obsessed with the Hunger Games, my first instinct, my first joke that popped in my head is, "Wow, Josh Hutcherson really likes characters that get his left leg attacked." Because in the Hunger Games, he gets it all sliced up, and then he ends up losing his leg and getting a prosthetic one in the books, but they don't do that in the movie. And then in this one, he gets his leg attacked by the cupcake. You know, when you explain a joke, that's where the humor comes in. Anyways, so you said Chica's your favorite animatronic. Dan, did you say you had a favorite?
I did not, and I don't know if I do have a favorite.
Hmm.
To be completely honest, I never really like even when I was super deep into like the FNAF fan base and lore back in the day. I don't
Mhm.
even think I really had a favorite then either.
Hmm.
I guess I've always kind of liked Freddy, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of because he's the main animatronic, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another random like that I just remembered. I think one of my favorite moments in the movie was when they're building the fort with all the animatronics, and then like the blue animatronic,
Bonnie.
Bonnie, sure. Bonnie falls over, and then they're like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" And they just give a thumbs up.
Be like, yep.
That was
Oh,
funny.
Another random like Doug the lawyer was hilarious. All the
Oh yeah.
faces, all the faces
was
he
cool.
would make. Yeah, he was great. I love Doug the lawyer.
He's like, oh, I should not be here.
Yeah, he was so ready to order food at the diner too, and they
He
just she
was,
just
yeah.
the aunt just took the menus away, was like, "No." So disappointed. Okay, so clearly I like this movie the most, and I think I've already mentioned some of my likes, but I'll just run through them again. I liked the suit designs, the translation from video game to practical was really good. The whole set design was really good and very creepy. Like if I were to go there and like step into that place, yeah, I'd be freaked out. If I were next to those animatronics slash people, yeah, no, I would be freaked out too. Like they definitely, although the movie does not present it as creepy or, well, I mean, it does sometimes, but it's not overly creepy or terrifying. I think if anyone were to like actually be in that situation, they would definitely be scared. At least I would be. So I think they did a good job at establishing that. The Living Tombstone song at the end, the first song that plays in the credits, I was like, "Hey, I know that song." Well, I only knew that song because I listened to the soundtrack playlist beforehand, but Living Tombstone is really cool. So I'm glad that they got like a fan song like into the movie, so I hope the fans really liked that. The general, like, musical score is really good too. It's, like, 80s and 8-bit and, like, creepy, so they did a good job with that. And then the opening title, the 8-bit, like, little montage is, like, the mini games in the games, so that was, like, a good reference callback too, and I liked the song that they made for that. Fun fact, it is sang by, children. So I saw a TikTok about that. So they did a good job. Yeah, okay, so that's generally, I guess, all of my likes. Also fun fact, not Max, Mike and Abby have the same forks I have. So that's fun. So we
That's
got
funny.
movies with the same IKEA curtains and the same forks. So my family must shop at the same place that these prop collectors shop at. Um but yeah, in general I liked that this movie has a sense of like fandom and community around it and that fans are like dressing up and participating in the movie going experience. I like the fact that this movie has made a lot of money, especially because they did put it on streaming, so people did have the option to do that, like, the day it came out, but yet the fans and people are seeing it in the theater. In general, that's our thoughts. I guess more less general, more a little bit in depth. I'm sure we could talk more about everything, but unless we have anything specific to talk about, say it now, I guess.
Are the sequels gonna come out as fast as they did for the games? Like, are we gonna get Five Nights at Freddy's 2 6 months from
Well,
now?
as the actors are on strike, I do not think so.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, probably not. Be a while till we get some more. But they can technically start writing because the writers are no longer on strike. Okay, well, let's go into rating it. Dan, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. I will start us off for our ratings. I am going to give the Five Nights at Freddy's movie 2 out of 5 stars. Thought it was pretty below average. The writing was pretty bad. I thought the characters were pretty bland. I really did love the set design, and I loved the way that the animatronics were designed, and the acting wasn't terrible either. But all of that wasn't enough to put it over the edge of above average or even average for me.
Okay. And Udi?
I think I'm gonna give it a 2.5. 2.5 out of 5 being like right in the middle. Um, Again, like I think it's especially for someone who didn't know anything about the lore going in, so like I had no sort of expectations or like I just knew it was about somewhat like possessed in some way animatronics or evil animatronics, and like that's all I knew. So going in with like basically no knowledge and just kind of taking what they tell me for what it is and blah blah blah, like it was a fine movie. And I think like again like the most shining uh great part about it is the production design, specifically like the animatronics and the pizzeria. um but yeah, I mean outside of that, I mean it's slightly cliche and slightly overly complicated, but also like not super engrossing narrative. But yeah, so as like a movie by itself, like removing the FNAF part, like it's like it's whatever. But with the FNAF, like the animatronics and like the pizzeria and all that, like those sequences, like it's fun. And I think the performances were pretty solid. And and I liked the main cast. And yeah, I'm intrigued to see what the sequels are like. So yeah, 2.5 out of 5.
Yeah, well, at least we can all agree that the set design and the production value of the suits are the best things out of this movie. So, the creators, sets decorators, set designers, people who worked on the suits, everyone deserves recognition for their great talent, as well as the actors and the writers and everyone who operates the camera, sound, and stuff. Even if you dislike a movie, I feel like you can always appreciate the value and time someone puts into it. But let's get to my rating. My rating is a 3.5 out of 5. So our total average rating for Five Nights at Freddy's is, hold on, I gotta do math, is a 2.6 repeating. So 2.66 repeating. So if you round that up, it's technically a 3. Unless you guys can argue to round down. But I'm cool with a 3.
Three's fine. I mean,
I mean,
I
we
don't have
don't
an
really,
agenda against it.
yeah, we don't really have an argument because like the math speaks for itself. We can't
Yeah.
argue
Okay.
against the math.
All right. So that was our conversation on Five Nights at Freddy's. Thank you for joining us and listening to our conversation. If you're interested in hearing more about our opinions on good, bad, and in between movies, check out our previous episodes. And as always, you can find us on Instagram at Atomic Lizards Pod and on Letterbox on Atomic_Lizards.